Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Miller. I'm the CEO and founder of Saffron, which stands for Simple Aid for Families Requiring Ordinary Needs. This is part two to last week's series. So if you had the pleasure of joining us, then you know that we were discussing passive aggression. And today, what we're doing is we're going to be talking about breaking the patterns of that kind of behavior. We're hopeful that you're joining us and that you have questions because as the panelists, we were not able to open up the forum in a timely manner to have questions. So we wanted to invite you guys to join us and participate and ask us any questions regarding how we're going to go about breaking that pattern. I'd like to first begin by saying passive aggression lives in the space between anger and silence, and we're all guilty of either one. There's not a person without a doubt that don't utilize some form of passive aggression. And we really do need to stop that. We need to be better communicators, not just for ourselves, but for the environment and everyone around us. I truly do believe that that's going to be something that's very important for us to do to heal together as a people. And that's what this platform is all about. Just a little bit of information quickly about Saffron and this space. This space is certainly a safe, multicultural, multi-generational conversation about the effects of the world and its issues and its inequalities and the disparities on us as a people. So this space has been created so it's safe, so that we can share how we feel emotionally, how as a collective we're being affected physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, with all the things that are around us, and including stuff like passive aggression as it builds up in us. So that's the initial reason why we created this. This was birthed out of COVID and the fact that we haven't been able to meet together. So a virtual space is important because it allows us as a multicultural generation to log on and share in conversation. So I don't want to eat up all the space as we're waiting for Craig Matthews, our moderator, to join us. I did want to express to everyone that we've been having some technical issues this morning, no fault to any of our own. So I'm going to yield the microphone to Jamal. Because I want him to introduce himself and let you guys know how experienced this brother is. And therefore, he's prepared to handle your questions, as am I. And I'm prepared to issue some to him. It's going to be a fun day. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name is Jamal Kazee. I am the founder of Keziah Tree Family Wellness and Counseling. I have an office in Castro Valley. It is a private practice therapy office. And we have been in practice for going on 2 years now, but I have been practicing and in this field for well over 20 years. It's crazy. I've been a therapist in the schools and the jails, both here and in Miami, Florida. And I am born and raised in Oakland. And I have not only been educated by the Oakland School District, I have worked within the Oakland School District. So it's a full circle effect for me. So I am excited to be here. Looking forward to having an opportunity to just talk and have open conversations. So yeah, I'm looking forward to questions. More importantly, I'm looking forward to answers. And I am not here to debate anybody, contrary to popular belief, but I am here to answer and be a part of this discussion. Thanks for having me.
Well. I never think that we have debates, Jamal. I think that one was a little passive aggression at me. I love it. But I do think that I do have a different opinion than most. So I'll go ahead and I'll issue our medical disclaimer. This space is not meant to replace your relationship with a licensed counselor, physician, or mental health therapist. This is just that, a safe space to share our opinions. And I do have some strong ones. And I'll begin with the first one. Should I really give a damn about these passive aggressive people? Should I really, really care, really, really continue to try to work on trying to figure out why they're silent or why they're angry, Jamal?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I can't tell you who to have a relationship with, right? If you feel or deem that a relationship is not worthy of continuing to grow, then absolutely, by any stretch of the imagination, eliminate the relationship and move forward. But if this relationship is with a person you deem worthy of your time and efforts, what this person is actually asking for is a way to communicate, is learning how to communicate. We don't come to each other as a perfect, um, I guess it would be Macy's versus IKEA, right? We don't come together assembled with the furniture exactly the way we want. We come together in a box, and there all the pieces of that box are how we decide to put things together. I don't know if you've ever built any IKEA furniture, but it is a very tedious process. It's a very lengthy process, and I think that most relationships are built on situations like that. So if it becomes uh, an issue, you have to then look at yourself and kind of figure out what is the trigger for me, right? Why is this so triggering? Why is this a way that is causing me so much harm or damage? And then from there, you can make that decision. So um, we all learn how to relate to people from different ways and different experiences, right? So um, I know working in like elementary schools, for example, I could walk in a class that's out of control and I could scream as a man of some stature. I could scream like, hey, everybody needs to sit down. Some kids will sit down immediately. Some kids will start crying. It's like flinch, is that they're scared. Some kids will start to cry, right? And it's all in their relationship to what a man with a loud voice and a big stature means in their life. So again, communication is the key. And again, if you should care or not, I can't tell you if you should, but chances are, I believe that you do care. And the question is, why do you care? Will probably be my next question back to you.
I care because I don't believe that we should wait till we get to anger to communicate our concerns. I care because I don't want to shut down either. I don't want that to build up to the point where I'm either really silent or I'm really explosive. I'm trying to use the techniques that you're teaching me to communicate better as a woman, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend, as a healthcare professional.
Mm-hmm.
Even being able to
Mm-hmm.
set those boundaries where the other day in a room, a family member took a step towards me and I had to stop everything and said, I'm so sorry. But every time you take a step towards me, you notice I step back because I'm not comfortable with you in my space. I am not comfortable. So I'm trying to use that. But I'm also a very honest person where I know that we get tired of passive aggressiveness. We get tired of people that should know better and do better, but are still reverting back to this. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why my question is, after a while of utilizing some of these techniques and encouraging them to communicate to me, to communicate what their want is, to communicate what their pain is, what is their acts of me, and they're not doing it and they're in a shutdown mode. Why should I give a damn beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
Why should I continue to try?
Mm-hmm. Well, if we're talking about work relationships and we're talking about people that are coming to you for help or health or healing, then it's almost the compassion oath that you took into this position, right? You can't get tired of people being sick if you're treating sick people. What typically happens is that what we're talking about in particular is compassion fatigue, right? We get to the point where um, we're tired of dealing with the same old thing over and over and over again. Um, and it's that piece that we need to examine. What is the trigger for you? What is the thing that's happening? We understand that we would want them to know better. We understand that we think they should know better, but because they don't, right? Because they don't, what part of the compassion am I tapping into to be in this situation? Now, the situation that you just brought up about someone approaching you or stepping into your space is not a situation about passive aggressiveness. That's aggression. It's not passive aggression. That's aggression, right? And that's totally different. Most passive aggressive people do things, for lack of a better word, passively. So instead of stepping into your space, they may roll their eyes. They may shift their seat. They may sit with their arms folded. They may smirk after you say something that's being helpful. What you can do then to disarm that is to call it out. It seems as though this thing is causing some frustration for you. Can you tell me what's going on? Right? But it's not to be confused with aggression, right? If somebody is being aggressive towards you, it's the exact same thing. That you step, like you just did, you stepping into my space makes me uncomfortable. I need you to step back and tell me, what is it that's causing you to be so aggressive? Typically, when people, one of the things we went over last week or last month, typically people who are passive aggressive didn't have an opportunity to express their anger in a healthy way. So we're talking about a lot of Black and brown people. We're talking about a lot of women. We're talking about a lot of children who were not allowed to have a healthy expression of their anger. So what happens is they learn to do it in a more safe way, a more passive way, right? If you don't have a relationship with your anger and you don't even know what your anger looks like, to even begin to address it, then there's nothing that we can really do. But the first key is to acknowledge, right? We have to acknowledge that it's even in the room. If I can't acknowledge it's in the room, how then can I deal with it? Because I don't even know what it looks like, right? Invite your anger into the room. Understand what it looks like. Understand where you feel it. When you're really, really mad, some people feel in their stomach. Some people get tense in their neck. Some people's back hurts, right? It's all of these different somatic things that happen, but we don't know what's going on, right? We have headaches and then be like, oh, I just need to lay down. So until we can at least acknowledge that we are even angry, we'll never be able to address the fact that we're doing it in a passive way.
So would you say that that's your answer between how to seek a balance between silence and that space that we're in is recognizing our somatic symptoms, the ones that first that cause us dis-ease, discomfort, as I've often explained to everyone, those little migraines when that person does what they do, that family member, that friend, your significant other. We all know the things that they do to needle us and get under our skin that they know will bother us. There are actually some people who are very good at observing our reactions to things and will do them because they know we don't like them. So therefore then, what do we do with that? How do we handle that when we really want to just go the fuck off?
Yeah. Well, so it's two sides there, right? Like, and I guess I need to get clarity. Are we asking how to deal with the passive aggressive person, or are we learning how not to be a passive aggressive ourselves? Because there are two sides of the coin.
So it's both sides of the coin, because there are going to be some people that log on and they want to control, they want to react better. Like me, I want to be better. I do, everyone.
So the question, I really do. Okay, so then let's go that way first, right? Let's talk about
okay.
The question then is, why is this person not feeling safe disagreeing with me, right? Or expressing their frustration with me. So if there's a way that, for example, we have a nice banter, right? If you said something that hurt my feelings, I could say, hey, Tracy, that hurt my feelings, right? I would have no harm. It would not harm me any. It would not trouble me any. I could say, hey, that hurt my feelings. But are the passive aggressive persons that you're speaking towards typically able to say the anger, the frustration, the emotion that they're feeling to you and have it be heard in a way? So, for example, when you say at work, there's a power dynamic, right? You have more power than the person that you are helping. So most of us have been trained, right? Like you think about schools, the teacher is always right, right? How many times have we had young ones in our family that we just grew up under the teacher is always right. The teacher is always right. It took me for me to work in schools to then say, no, the teacher is not always right, right? But in that situation, if I have power over the person, and that person is being passive aggressive, then for me, it's an opportunity for me to call out the passive aggressiveness and then say, what is it that you want to say, for example, right? We think about relationships a lot, and we deal with people who are passive aggressive, or it feels like they're manipulating us with guilt. What we want to do then is to call it out when we see it and make sure that the person that we are relating to is in a space where they can communicate their needs and not just have them try to be anticipated, or that they don't want to have the tough conversation, or they don't want to be in a situation where they then don't have to take control of what it is that they want to say. So if we're talking about relating to, one of the things is, how are people allowed to relate to me? Developing a sense of guidelines, if you will, right? It seems really silly to do it, but it's also setting the boundary and the expectation. How do we talk when things are tough, right? How do we relate to each other when it's hard to have a conversation? How do we, for example, in relationships with couples, if I'm upset and you're upset, how do we get through this together? Right? Because the foundation is set that we're a couple. Now, what we're doing is we're standing on rocky and shaky ground. How do we give in? Who gets the final say? If we both are no, you say go left, I say go right, I believe that right is the right direction. Who gets the final say? Right? How do we set these things up? How do we come back from a fight? How do we make sure we don't go to bed upset? It doesn't have to be solved, but we have to know that we're not mad, right? There are ways that you have to set this thing up so people can then feel safe.
So Jamal, is that pineapple?
Yes.
No. I'm just asking. Is that where I say pineapple? That's how in the couple thing is that.
But that's where pineapple gets developed, right? Pineapple gets developed because, again, it's easy to just go, lack of a better word, balls to the wall and just like whatever, and then somebody be like, no, that's too far. No, we set it up. Let's talk about it, right? Let's be intentional, right? The intention.
Let's be intentional.
Situation is to promote and to develop and to secure a relationship. So if the intention is to promote, secure, and develop a relationship, that's our baseline. Anything outside of our baseline, we have to address. And how do we address it? Right? You don't call me out of my name. You don't put your hands on me. You don't, talk to anybody else outside of our circle, or like whatever the situation.
So ground rules.
Some ground rules. How do we want to? And the problem is, so back to relationships. The problem is that the internet is saturated with how men and women should be. It's millions of opinions on what a man is, millions of opinions on what a woman is, and people are going outside of themselves to find out how they should be internally, right? That's not how that should work, right? You have a partner, you guys have a conversation and you relate. And how you relate is how you two relate. It's not going to be how this famous couple relates, or even me as a therapist. I'm a couple, for just real quick, I have a couple that I see pretty regularly, and they don't argue until they come see me. Because they don't believe that they have the tools to be able to argue securely. And push back on that you absolutely do. You guys don't like it, but you have the tools to get through this argument because it's just a conversation. But when it starts to get you start to emote, you start to get feelings, you start to interpret like that feeling that hurt me, so I gotta hurt you.
Yes.
Right. And now we're not talking. Now we're just fighting.
So that is I'll turn over to Craig. Our moderator is here, so I'll let him take over. I will say this though, that's the caveat, right? Because instinctually, as a human, that's what we do. You hurt me, I hurt you back. So breaking that pattern, I don't see that that's going to be easy, you know?
I disagree.
And that's why we have different opinions.
Yeah,
so I'm going to turn over. Oh yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Craig Matthews, so he can introduce himself as the moderator and open it up to our panelists who may have some questions. From me, or Jamal, and again, reiterating, he's right. This is not a debate. It's a beautiful conversation about a man and a woman of professionals, friends who often have very different opinions. Thank you.
Did you say he's right? I did. My phone was breaking up.
It must have. Yeah, something must have been wrong with your hearing.
Well, good afternoon, Jamal and Tracy, and our viewing and listening participants. I first and foremost do want to apologize. I am Craig Matthews. I am your moderator for this conversation. And unfortunately, I could not get past some passive aggressiveness from my technology. I'm not in my normal space, and it just seemed like as hard as I was trying to fulfill my responsibility, my equipment was not having the conversation with me. So it's funny, you mentioned the word argument. And while I could not verbally confront these systems, I was challenged by needing them to do their part of our relationship, but I had to get some help. I had to get someone to intervene here because I did not know how to get to the source of what my system's problem was. And it reminds me that in relationship dynamics I have experienced, I have not been able to speak the right words to form the conversation to avoid arguing and not discussing and the emotion. And so I'm a bit thrown off by landing this way, but it really just set off a light for me as I prepare to open this mic. When, as an English teacher, I had to teach students how to write an argument. They always had the idea in their mind that argumentation was yelling and screaming. So how we get to a point in a difficult conversation where we are able to state things clearly, to ask things clearly without becoming emotional. That takes practice. I know it can be done. So thank you again. It is just awesome to have the space. And I would really like now to allow all of our participants, please, bring your questions forth to these two very knowledgeable, very passionate professionals, and let's hear where you are on this topic. Open mics.
And it's okay, everyone, to agree with me.
Thank you for showing passive aggressiveness right there. I do like your example that you just showed us.
And you know, Jamal, while we're waiting, I don't see anything in our chat right now, but tell me this, Jamal, how do we fall into passive aggressive patterns? What happens? What's wrong? What's out of whack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we so kind of, that's a perfect example. I think a lot of times what we don't have is the ability to healthily relate to our frustrations and our anger, actually to our emotions most times. The only emotion that we're allowed to have as people are typically anger or happiness. They're on either sides of the spectrum. Even when we deal in our grief, right? We deal in our grief with either cheer up and you get to see them again one day, or oh, I'm so mad that cancer took them. But it's never to sit with the grief that we have. Death is just as much a part of life as birth. It's just as much a part of life, but we don't relate to them in the same way, and we don't allow ourselves to relate in the same way. Again, I hear it. I'm sure we've heard it. I'm sure some of us have said it, that, when a child is crying, we don't cry over that. Big boys don't cry. You want to be, all of these different things. I remember my niece as a child crying over something she wanted. And I was like, we don't cry over food, right? Food is not something we cry about. But I wasn't asking her, what is it, like I wasn't giving her the emotional intelligence to know what it is she's crying about. The disappointment of the thing that she wanted. Learning to be able to express like, that made me sad because this. We only get to the surface of the level of the thing, and then that thing becomes what it is. Typically, when we act out, as a cognitive behavioral therapist, typically when we act out, we have a thought. So there's a stimulus that happens. So let's say I lose my pen, I lose my favorite pen, and I go straight to, oh, I'm angry, right? Typically, there's a thought. Right. The first thought is what? When I lost my pen, I'm always losing stuff. I should be smarter than this. I should. That thought stimulates a feeling, right? So now I'm always losing my pen. Something's wrong with me. I must be incompetent. And then I go out and do something to counteract that. I buy 1,000 pens, right? So when I lose a pen, I start to think this thought and then I act out. So that cycle kind of continues. Now, what happens is we have to break that thought cycle, and that's where the passive aggressiveness comes in. Typically, we're trying to avoid a fear, right? We're trying to avoid what our worst case scenario would be. So Sister Tracy just made an example of someone leaning into her in a setting or something like that. The first thought is that there's danger, right? That there's danger. This dude is going to attack. Then the feeling with that is that I have to, I don't know, toughen up or something like that. And then my action is to lean back and then to respond. You see what I'm saying? Like but we go quick to the feeling. We go straight to the feeling. We don't think about what we're thinking about or what we're doing.
Is it, and thank you for that example, Tracy, if you don't mind, I do want to go back to that because that's real. So Jamal, in when Tracy is experiencing that, is it the passive dynamic to lean back and then the aggressive dynamic to set that verbal boundary with an explanation? Is she behaving passive aggressively in her response to a threat?
No.
Or is so yeah, take that apart for us. Okay. What is happening there that demonstrates passive aggression?
So that one is not. So the response to that one with Tracy is that that was a response to outright aggression, right? That was aggressive. That was
Okay.
protecting herself. That was that. So what would passive aggressiveness look like in that situation? Passive aggressive would look like the person lunges at her and she smirks under her breath, right? She doesn't address the thing that is happening. She just kind of smirks under her breath, like, and says something kind of sarcastic or sly, right? To
Okay.
kind of disrupt, avoiding making the conversation of you just made me uncomfortable, right? So
Okay.
Tracy in that situation has, in the original situation, Tracy actually healthily addressed one of her boundaries. My boundary was
Address the
crossed.
threat. Right.
My
Okay.
boundary was crossed. I feel unsafe. This is why I'm doing this. Please don't do that again. Right? That is the correct way to handle it. A passive aggressive way would not have said any of those things.
Okay. I like that. So you're saying in that scenario, a passive aggressive person would have just smirked, would not have addressed the threat right away, would have passively responded in the face of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean that once they smirked and like, okay, you're really a threat and I'm not really responding to this protectively or aggressively or in a healthy manner now, what happens next? Do they become over aggressive, and does that make the passive aggression dynamic?
Yeah, it's not necessarily textbook, but I do believe that it is going to cause more harmful interactions between the two, right? Because typically an overly aggressive person is looking for a response from you, right? So let's go to relationships. What happens is that a lot of times the aggression that we feel is an unhealthy way that we relate to each other or that we argue. There's a power dynamic that's being expressed. And so when you get into this power dynamic that's being expressed, it's a two-sided thing that's being dealt with, right? I'm receiving something by being more powerful than you, and you're receiving something from being more passive aggressive in your communication, right? So there's a way that we talk and we deal with people that's above ground and below ground, right? What would be a good example? How we deal with the police typically in our communities, right? There's a way that you can talk to me, and there's a way that you cannot talk to me, right? We all have had experience with police officers who are super aggressive, and we just kind of take it because they have the shield and we're trying to get away and get back to our lives and be in a situation where we can live and get through these things. Well, those things are now being challenged. And the more direct approach is to be able to express, I'm concerned. Do you mind if I record this? I'm concerned about this, that, or the other. Or to cooperate with, here's my license, to kind of cut the conversation. We've learned a way not to be passive in our conflicts, but to be direct, right?
Okay.
We're upfront, we're handling it, we're dealing with it as an equal kind of a relationship, and then we can move through it.
In a non-aggressive, non-threatening persona.
Right. In a way that is healthy enough to conversate and have this communication conversation. In a way to have this conversation that is healthy and it sees both individuals as human beings, both capable of respect that is due to each other.
Okay. All right. And again, I really just want this to have like shoes and sneakers and slippers on it that everybody can really walk around in. So let's use your example of communities of color in general. and the dynamic of policing communities of color. For years, the abuses that occurred during that, would you say overall the communities of color have been passive to? We've just had to take it, but now suddenly there is there was a point where that passivity could not continue, and a very aggressive over response started, where we are able to start having conversations and stuff now. Just do you understand what I'm asking?
I do.
What?
I think that the passive aggressiveness in our communities at this point, in my opinion, are more so the us policing us, right? So we'll have a we'll be overly aggressive towards the mistreatment of the police as an institution, but we'll have an under response of the treatment of our own citizens by our own community, in the essence of no snitching, right? Or all of those stuff. So we'll be overly aggressive towards the institution, but we'll be passive when it comes to our own policing, right? So we'll all know who broke into Mrs. Smith's car, but we won't say anything because we don't want to be a snitch or whatever, right? So the way that we healthily do that is we come together as a community, and this is the restorative justice type of situation, and we restore the harms that are done within our communities, right? If brother such and such that broke into the car has a need, then we be able to address the need that brother so-and-so has. If brother so-and-so is trying to get high, then we as a community develop a way that we don't sell drugs in our communities, or we have the restorative, we have rehabs or whatever in our communities, right? We pull together as a community. So there's a
healthy responses.
There's a healthy response to the thing. I see some things in the chat.
And yeah, I apologize. I was just recognizing. So Jamal or Tracy, please, there was an email question. And the question is, should you care why your friend is sometimes shady? I'm please and thank you. Ladies first. Tracy, should you care?
I'm not one to answer that question because my responses aren't always therapeutic. I'm kind of over people and the word shade. I'm so sick of that. Where they, I believe some people have so much shade, they can take a vacation and lay under a whole bunch of bumbarascla palm trees, but that is not addressing any issue. And I'm tired of the shade. So I don't think that I have a therapeutic response, because my response is going to be, if they're your friend and they cannot talk to you, I understand what Jamal is saying. Is there a reason why they can't talk to you? Is there a reason? Okay, I'm rolling my eyes because I wasn't thinking about it like this before, but Jamal brought it up, so now I'm gonna have to think about it. Are you unapproachable? But if you are a person that's approachable, if you've offered yourself and a safe space for them to express what's wrong and they're still being shady, to me, I say fuck them.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Now, here's the thing, Tracy. We gonna switch sides on this one because I actually agree with you in this particular instance. The key to what we have to understand in relationships. Yeah.
Is there an applause button?
Let's work the time. 12:52. Work the time. The thing about friendships and relationships is that the relationship and the friendship is not based on you maintaining the other person. The friendship and the relationship are about you maintaining yourself in this relationship, right? If there is somebody that is doing something to you that you are in disagreement with, you don't need to figure out why they are doing it. You need to figure out why you are allowing it or accepting it if it's that much of an issue. Now, if you have an issue with the way that someone is treating you, you're actually being the passive aggressive one by trying to figure out what's going on with them.
Stop right there. Pause right there. So your answer to this email question, should you care why your friend is sometimes shady? No, you should care why you accept shadiness.
Right. To a certain degree. To a certain, I don't want everybody to go out and get rid of all of their friends today, because friendships have that. But yes, right? What is the shade that is happening that this person feels comfortable either doing to you or through you, right? I'll give you a perfect example. As a kid, I had a couple of friends that ended up going to the NFL. There was a Super Bowl trip. I had like a group of like 15 friends all going to the Super Bowl. No one told me about the trip, right? But they called me and asked me for a ride to the airport, right? Now, in essence, at first I was like, sure, whatever, where y'all going? They was like, Super Bowl. And I was like, why didn't anybody tell me? And it was like, oh, we knew you was gonna trip, yada, yada, yada. Now, did I eliminate these guys as friends? I did not, but I understand who they are. So if this particular thing comes up and they're not as dependable as I need them to be, or they aren't available to me, I know who they are. So it's not going to affect me in the same way. So that shadiness that they chose to do at that time is less about me and more about them. I'm not going to sacrifice my sanity and my well-being and my peace of mind to figure out why somebody is doing me wrong. If you are not helping me to be the person that God says I'm supposed to be, then you have no place for me here, right? And I can still love you, and I can love you from afar. So if somebody is doing you wrong, it really depends on what the wrong is. Like if they're not, sharing their drink with you, then that's one thing. But if they're like taking money and talking down on your name or causing you kind of stress or heartache, you can so the healthy way to do that is to express in which way they've harmed, and to outright say, hey, when you do this, I don't like that. I actually saw someone posted also, and this will be the answer for theirs, about the text messaging. If they're not returning your text on time, does that mean something? I'm a terrible texter.
Oh,
right.
Yes, he.
Hold on. We had one agreement. We don't need all of these. But I'm a terrible texter. That doesn't mean that I don't love you, right? But you have to be able to express like, hey, yo, when I text you and you don't respond back for 3 days, that hurts my feelings. Or however you feel. I don't want to say what your feelings will be. Whatever that feeling is. And if it's in a relationship and that's a need for you, do not be.
When I text you and you don't respond, Jamal, for 3 days, it hurts my feelings.
Listen, they texted Jesus and he didn't respond for 3 days, and they built a whole religion behind that. So we all right.
So, Jamal, and again, this comes back to...
There's someone else that's trying to speak. Master Stock Brewery keeps coming off of mute, but we're not acknowledging. I'm sorry.
Let him talk.
Am I coming up? Because I thought I wasn't. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'm sorry. I had asked my question. I don't have one right now.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think yours was the text one, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So just to, I don't know.
And I guess I do have a question. So on the other side of that, Jamal, like I'm like you, I'm a bad texter. Like because of my condition, I lose time. If I am like so laser focused on just trying to do whatever needs to be done that day, in terms of what my body has, but some people are always saying, "Oh, I've been trying to get to you for 3 days. I've been doing this." I'm like, and all I do is I apologize. But sometimes people are like, "Betty, I'm tired of you with this. Like, what shit?" And I'm like, I don't even know what to tell you because I want to say I'm gonna do better, but I might have one of those days, or I might space out, or I didn't have a good memory before I took medication, so you can forget it now.
Mhm.
Even though I love you, it's like if I'm with someone, I can't be on the phone and talk to somebody else anymore. I just I'm a mess.
Yeah.
So how do you get someone
So
to
I
understand
think
that I'm not being passive aggressive? I'm not ignoring you. I thought I sent the text. I thought I did what I was supposed to do. I didn't think that text even did what needed an answer because I already did what I said I was going to do. I mean, I don't even know what to do or say.
people pay for that. I feel
Jamal, you
Somebody's
might be
in the
having some,
matrix.
Jamal, I think you're having some technical issues because we can't hear you. And then there was,
Can you hear now?
Yes.
Yes, but you're still a
yeah,
little.
it's still chipping in and out.
I'm
If you
trying.
have a response, because there's one more question that was emailed, just in case.
Can you hear me?
You're
going in and out.
say something again.
I
You're frozen.
Yeah, no, your audio is doing crazy stuff. Tracy, what was the emailed question while we
So the other email question was, should they care if someone they love is giving them the silent treatment? And how do they get to the point where they salvage their relationship or they give up on it? So I guess it's two questions in one.
and you have that email address, yes?
Pardon me?
I said you have that email address in case we need to actually have an answer sent to them.
Oh, sure. I certainly do if that's what we need to do.
Yeah, Jamal's
Because I guess Jamal is a little bit frozen. I guess that's the space that we're talking about where passive aggression lives. It lives in that
Yes, it
space
is.
between silence and anger. So
Yes.
to the individual, if you're listening, so this person could either have some kind of residual feeling or resentment towards you. They're either angry at you, you understand? So therefore they shut down and they give you the silent treatment because most of the time it's either they're upset, they're hurt, or they themselves don't know how to express how they're feeling, their emotions. So they don't know how to properly address you and say, I feel hurt, or they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to take hold of that space. And instead of filling it with what the need is, the reason why they're shutting down on you, right? Whether that's because they don't feel as though they're in control or they don't feel as though their opinion matter, they just shut down. And we see that a lot in our elders. It used to happen a lot with my parents. My mom is getting so much better about communicating as opposed to giving you the silent treatment. That silent treatment can be so very hurtful because it leads you to interpret whatever, right? You feel very disrespected in our culture. I can't speak for others, right? When you're given the silent treatment. But to me, I think what you can do if you value this individual, and I'll incorporate some things that Jamal said until he can come back off of mute. But I think if you value this individual, you can sit down and say, I don't know if you've had challenges speaking with me in the past. I don't know if for some reason you don't think that I will listen, but here I am. And whenever you are ready, please communicate with me what's wrong, how you're feeling, or what your ask is of me. I think that that's going to be an important thing for you to be able to do in order to salvage the relationship.
Yeah, in Jamal's absence, I do want to bring back a response that he made earlier to this individual, because you love them. When the silent treatment has affected you to a point where it is hurting you, rather than ask what's wrong, move in a direction of what can I do to help myself right now? Because Jamal did mention that trying to figure out why is just passive aggressive in itself. It's passive in itself. But in the face of that silent treatment, as just John Q. human being at this point in life, I would say, do what you can do to help yourself feel better about yourself in that situation. Because obviously, if they're being silent to hurt you,
Hey, Jamal,
you don't want to feed into that.
We're back.
Yes, you are.
Jamal, are you able to come off of mute?
Amen.
It was that email question regarding, and you might have heard the question regarding what do they do when they're being given the silent treatment in a relationship? And you did hear it?
I did. I heard most of it, and I think I'm prepared to respond. The first thing, again, so you guys hear me okay? I'm so sorry. Are you guys with me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, let's see if this works. Again, I apologize for the technical issues. The silent treatment situation, number one, it's kind of what I was saying earlier. The key to this situation is to express directly that when you do the silent treatment and when you shut me out, it hurts me. That is not an effective way of communication for me. What is a way that we can do something differently than silence, right? Because now we're being direct about our own feelings towards the treatment. Now, why they do it, how they established it, all of those things are wonderful. Those are great to know, and I'm glad to hear them. But for me, that hurts me, right? It's not about you, it hurts me, because what happens is just like with a toddler. When a toddler throws a tantrum, the tantrum is to gain control of the situation, to gain control of the moment. Me personally, I don't like silent treatments either. So what will happen is if I'm in a relationship where we're arguing and you begin to go silent, we're no longer talking about what the argument is. We're talking about the silent treatment. And now you're back in control because you get to say when and when you won't speak. So the answer to that conversation, again, is always you want to go internally and be able to express that hurts me. When you do that, that makes me feel this. It would be no different that if Tracy and I were in a relationship and she punched me on my lip every day. I have to say, hey, that hurts me when you punch me, or I'm not going to put up with that punch. You see what I'm saying? And same thing with the sister with the texting issue. The first thing you have to understand is yourself in the issue. This is not personal. This is an issue of my attention with this medicine that I'm taking or the health that I'm feeling. It makes me feel bad that I'm doing this. It makes me feel worse than when people remind me that it's happening. But this is the patience I need. If we're going to relate, I need you to be patient with me as we develop our communication style, right? And then I put forth that effort. But it's not about pleasing the other people or changing the other person. It's about
Correct.
understanding who and where you are and where you stand in relationship to the aggression that you're receiving.
So now
So
we're getting somewhere. So, and I hate to interject. So that works two ways. The individual doesn't have to, as we would say in the Caribbean, give bly to that if they feel disrespected. So if a person feels disrespected by one's actions, they don't have to continue with the relationship. If it's diminishing them, they too can say, okay, I understand that you have some issues going on, or this is your response. And then you can make a decision if that's something that you want to deal with or you do not, right or
well,
wrong.
kind of the in essence, yes. But the
Is it risk
point
reward?
well, the point is that you're presenting yourself. You're not asking for anything from the other person. You're presenting yourself and saying, this is how this
Okay.
makes me feel when you do this. And that person can say, well, the hell with how you feel. This is how you made me feel. Now we get to see where this thing is. If the response is, oh, that's not my intent to hurt you, how do we then develop the communication that we can fight? We can fight. Arguments are going to happen, but we fight fair, right? We don't fight. There's a quote in the Bible that says, we don't fight as the world does, right? When it's me and you, we fight. This is how we fight, right? I'm not going to come in here and start talking about your mama and all of this stuff and your mama should have raised you better and all that. No, I'm going to come to you in a way that we agreed, so then we can slow down and honestly evaluate what exactly is going on and how do we address the issue at hand. But if every time we get ready to disagree and argue, we don't have any boundaries and we can't say pineapples, then all hell is going to break loose.
So this is not, and I guess maybe before Craig responds, I will say this. This is to all the people that whisper to me and talk to me, whether I'm having goals of care discussions professionally or whether they're calling me personally. I believe that in life, there's something called reciprocity. And it's not just about what you feel is reciprocity. It's about the individual too. So both of us have to have an understanding of what we consider to be reciprocity. And if something that in a relationship, right, we're tangled. And if there's something, for example, Jamal and I are in a relationship and there's something that he's doing that I feel is disrespectful, that I feel diminishes me, hurts my feelings, and I've expressed that. And he's expressed to me, hey, this is either because of a physiological reaction that I have, a somatic response that I have, an emotional trauma that I'm dealing with causes me to be reactive in this manner. And this is very clear that I'm saying, and you as the individual are saying now, okay, I understand these things, but I am no longer willing to deal with them. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and no, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're also talking very high level kind of emotional intelligence here, right? There are people who do things who don't know why they do them. And so the first step is to understand that what it is that you need, and then be able to talk to a person and let them know that it's safe enough for you to be vulnerable here, right? Because what happens is in relationships, your vulnerability is my responsibility, right? The things that can hurt you, I have the key to those. And I promise not to unlock those places in order to get what I need, to retaliate, to manipulate, to do any of those things. So what happens is the more I feel safe with you, the more I can open with you. And this is where you see young people who are breaking cars and blowing up people's things and setting all of this chaos and all of these things happen, is because they've put so much of their vulnerability in this person that any type of rejection feels like physical pain, feels like the brain literally cannot tell.
Yeah.
The brain can't tell the difference between an emotional punch and a physical punch, right?
There is no more difference anymore.
There's no more difference. So what happens
Jamal,
is that once you start
I
to
apologize.
establish, and no, you're good. Once you start to establish and put into place safe spaces for vulnerability, you have to be aware of that. That's why also dudes a lot of times turn into stalkers. Like, I'll never leave you because this was a place that I could set and have this kind of safety. But you have to have boundaries to be able to understand what's going on. Again, last example, when you get on the plane and the oxygen masks fall, they say, put your mask on first before assisting anybody else. We in our relationships are so used to assisting everyone else around us before we take care of ourselves. And what I'm saying is to come and present yourself not all the way healthy, whole, and healed, but aware of where you stand, so you can have a clear picture on where it is you're trying to go. But if you don't know where you even stand as far as relating to people and others, then how are you ever going to be able to talk to somebody else?
Right. That's excellent. Jamal and Tracy, you know how potent this is for interpersonal dynamics is it's off the chain, because we can think personally, of examples and situations. I want to put two situations in front of both of you clinically and ask you about passive aggression through these two dynamics. Jamal, you talked about, places where people's vulnerability is supposed to be looked out for, looked after. When school shootings first started happening in our country, we had, outsiders acting out on these schools. The most recent thing I heard a couple of weeks ago, when a 6-year-old takes a gun to school to shoot an adult, that is aggression. But is that because the passivity that they've invested in believing in that system got abused, misused, overlooked, thrown away because their vulnerability was not respected? So, please
go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead and finish your question.
And socially, socially, in terms of this exploding aggressive behavior that we see from a lot of young people toward authority, toward situations, is that the other side of them having lost their passive threshold? They just can't cope anymore. So,
no, I think it's a layered question. I don't think that every individual is necessarily the same. I think you're spot on with there's a level of inattentiveness to what is going on in people. One of the things that you also have to take into account is that people are feeling unseen, right? People are feeling unheard and unvalued. And you see it throughout television everywhere. Black folks came up with Black Lives Matter, right? You turn it on and, every, if you're a white man in this world, then you don't matter at all. You're the face of evil, right? There's so many different groups that I could go through. But one of the things that's interesting is the typical mentality of these school shooters is that they are typically either bullied or they feel unseen in some kind of a way. And again, this is not a popular opinion because we only think of like the victimization of it all, right? But humanly, we are not biologically built to murder in that type of a way. So what happens to people that you can be pushed? Think about what you just said as a 6-year-old, pushed to a point of murder. That's the only way, that's the only answer that I have, is to eliminate you from this world, right? That you shall no longer exist. Now, when I say it like that, what does that remind you of? It reminds you of the cancel culture, right? There is something that I could say on here today that my whole mentality could be, I could be erased from this planet, if you will. Jamal should never work again. Jamal should never, ever be seen or heard, or he should lose everything. Our society eliminates the things we don't like. We no longer try to understand what we don't understand. We no longer can ask questions of each other as a neighbor, right? Everything is to eliminate. So, yes, if the 6-year-old felt that type of threat against their vulnerability, absolutely they're going to act in that type of a way. But what is the answer? The answer is to be able to grab this child and this adult, because what is the adult doing that's pushing this kid to this level?
Right.
So all of these things, again, this is the communication. Nobody is talking about what is the thought that's behind the feeling that leads to the action, right? What is the thought? And so, all of these, perfect example. You know why they stopped showing people run on the NFL field and go like tackle a football player or something? Because they know that when people see it, they imitate it.
They're going to do it. Yeah.
They going to do it. What happens when a school shooter, somebody shoots up a place? They're on every channel. Their face, their ID, what they did, how they did it is everywhere, right? So they live in infamy. They're not famous, they're infamous. And some of them, that's the goal. The goal is to be this hateful mass murderer type of person. It's ridiculous.
Because you didn't accept me as something else, so I'm manifesting into this. I wasn't allowed to, it seemed like when we spoke about passive aggression in terms of why someone wouldn't return a message or a text, the answer in that situation is, don't even waste your time asking yourself why. Ask yourself, why are you in the position to care? Why, what about you gets wounded by that?
Yeah.
So as a society, the 6-year-old was my one example. I want to give you another one. The American political system is, to me, it's littered with passive aggression, because I'm a Republican and this, or I'm a Democrat and this. It's not about serving. It's about this. Your party did this, now I got to do this. Is that passive aggression? I mean, I want to get to a point where when we see the behavior, we know exactly what it is.
Well, the political system is doing exactly what the political system is intended to do. It's not passive aggressive. It's not aggressive. It's outright American evil corporation that's built on money, greed, and power. Like so here's the real issue. If we go back to relationships, my brother, why am I looking to that system to be the thing I need them to be?
Come on. Okay. Thank you.
They are who they say they are. They are who they present themselves to be. That's it. That's all. When
It
have
is
they
what it
ever
is.
been for the, when have they ever been for the people?
It is what it is. Why am I? Okay, good. Good. There's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
I see.
So there's another question in our Q&A,
Let's
and the
do it.
question is, what if someone's perception of shade and what happened is incorrect and they choose not to communicate after they perceive a slight? So that's their choice.
Yeah.
In my
God bless you.
opinion,
Yeah.
and I'm
God bless
always
you.
going, and pardon me, Jamal?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I said, God bless you and good luck with your life.
Right.
I mean,
And that's, nobody doesn't have to respond to anyone. It's everyone's individual right to make their choice whether they want to move through this together or move forward without the other. That's your inherent right. What we're
and
trying to do on this platform is fill that space that Jamal spoke about the thoughts, then becoming the anger and the action. How do we fill that space in a healthy way so that we stop that? And it's important to understand that as a registered nurse, I'm always going to say sometimes it's to stop the behavior, right? Sometimes it's to stop the behavior, stop the action, stop what's occurring, change your diet, change your company, change how you sleep, change your patterns can lead to healthiness for you. And healthiness for you might entail restricting or setting boundaries or limiting your ability to interact with people that you love. It has nothing to do with the love itself. But if the fact that matter is that your uncle, your aunt, your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, your friends are doing things that are affecting you, that are causing you dis-ease, which together is just disease, eventually it will lead to that. And if you feel as though it's healthy for you to stem that, right, to cauterize that, I'm never going to be the one to say no. I'm not.
Jamal,
That's going to be Jamal to give you a therapeutic, emotional, mental, healthy, different coping mechanism. For me, I'm going to tell you, put your oxygen mask on first. And if that looks like you have to cut their ass off, cut their ass off.
well,
Straight up.
yes.
Jamal, wait, before you respond to that, as individuals, are we wrong when we feel we are at a point in an interaction, a relationship, a dynamic, a history, whatever, where we say, my mask is on, I got to walk away from this?
Well, I think the feeling and the fear that we have is that we haven't done enough to salvage the thing that we're after, right? So in this situation where a perceived slight,
I see your head, Tracy.
the perceived
Go ahead,
slight
Jamal.
in all of these things is, number one, why is this triggering me? What is the trigger for me, right? And again, you have to think about what you're thinking about, right? So for example, there are times where, and I'll put myself on the line here. There are times where I am, I'm active in my church, I'm active in my community. I perceive myself to be a good guy, right? I perceive myself to be a good guy. I'll date someone, and if our dating is not going well, and she attacks and makes it as though I am a bad guy, I'll respond to that.
How?
I'll try to convince her that I'm a good guy. You misunderstood.
Wait, hold up, time out. Before you, but what is wrong with the moment you get, you go to church, you do this, you do that, you do all of these things, and the first time you get that mischaracterized, misjudged assessment of you back from this person, what is it wrong to you know what? If you misread all that, let me just save myself the trouble right now and keep it moving.
It's not. So a couple of things, right? I don't want to miss what we're talking. So the key in what you just said was the first time, right? The first time. Yeah. So for me, what I have to understand, though, kind of go back to it for a second. What I have to understand is that I'm triggered in that moment, right? There's something that I'm responding to as a trigger. I'm not responding in truth. I'm not responding in a whole self. I'm responding in defense. You're not going to say that about me. I'm not this person.
I felt something, so I'm reacting.
Right. So instead, I can say, I'm sorry you felt that way. That wasn't my intention. How do we repair this moving forward? As opposed to, you hurt me, I'm out. I'm cutting you off, you blocked, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not going there, right? I can still stand in my ground of who I am in truth and then be able to proceed moving forward. If I did something that is seemed as offensive, that is a part of my character, then that's when we have the conversation of, oh, well, that's kind of who I am, right? I've dated people that said you go to church too much, right? So am I going to stop going to church? No, we don't fit.
What was your response to them? What was your response to, I mean, somebody telling you you go to church too much. What is your response to that situation? What is,
Well, you want to know what I really said, or you want my therapeutic answer?
Give me both. Give me therapy. No, give me therapy first, and then be human.
My initial reaction is, where else would you rather me be?
Thank you.
Right?
Okay.
Where else? I could be a million other places. I could be a million other places. You would want me to be trying to work on my spiritual health because I could be a whole different person. That's number one. My therapeutic answer is, what is it that is triggering you about me going to church so much? Right.
Okay. All right.
And because there are a lot of single women at the church. She may have had a bad experience at the church. She may think that all church dudes is pimps and trying to get over, right? There's a million things it could be that she had that thought, right? But since it was so long ago, the real answer was she just wanted to go with me, and I hadn't invited her. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's so many like tricky little nuances that you can't just.
So you didn't invite her to church?
I did not. Not to my church. That's like inviting you to my dinner table at my mama's house. If you ain't ready to sit at my mama's house, you ain't ready to sit at my church.
Oh.
So,
ladies, you heard how they think,
one
ladies?
second, guys. I have to, pardon me 1 second, guys.
Well, I will tell you that was a lot of truth, and that was necessary.
Yeah.
And I do love that, because I think that if someone was listening, it was a slow start, but I think they're getting answers now, because I think these are things that are important for people to hear, that there's a difference of opinions. There are different dynamics here in how we see things. And I want the people who have reached the point where they have had enough or they're frustrated, I want them to understand, I see you, I feel you, I identify with that frustration. I identify with that place between silence and anger. And I identify with, once you feel as though you've tried to communicate how you're feeling, you ended up being frustrated, and you ended up cutting that individual off for your own self-preservation. I understand that space. I also understand the therapeuticness that Jamal brings, because it's helping. It really is. It's helping me, because I might be able to reevaluate some, hasty decisions, to put my oxygen mask on first and not give a damn whether the people in the other room are breathing. I could see how that may not be therapeutic, but I also, you know, go
Yeah.
ahead. What were you going to say,
Well, I
Jamal?
was just going to say that just kind of what you said with your medical disclaimer in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide to go to therapy, a
You
lot of
should.
times we learn how we developed our communication styles. A lot of times, as I was saying earlier, a lot of our sisters were not allowed to express their frustration to any males in their households. So if my
That's true.
father continuously bombarded my opportunities for me to be able to say, hey, I disagree with that, the next man in my life, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to speak up, and I'm more quick to cut things off because I wasn't able to establish that kind of conversation with any male authority in my life. I'm not saying that's anybody's story, but you never know what or where these things come from and how
Mm.
they got established. And you learn in therapy to get to the point where you can forgive yourself or the person in that situation and move forward to then have a more healthy relationship with the emotion that you're having. So most of the times when we have these emotions, we don't know what the hell is going on. We're just reacting. When you can start to understand what sadness looks like, and when you start to feel
Yes.
it, like you said, when you have that dis-ease, you can invite it into the room and say, okay, sadness, you're invited here today, but you don't live here. You can stay today, but you don't live here. Tomorrow you have to leave. And joy is going to replace that. I know what joy feels like. I know what depression feels like. I know what anxiety feels like. And I'm starting to become more aware of the issues that I deal with, but I'm in control of who gets to come in and when they get to come in.
I
Right?
love that. I
It's the
love that.
movie, what's that movie? It's a Disney movie, Inside Out. Inside Out,
Mm-hmm.
when they have all the different emotions, every emotion gets an opportunity to come to the light, but I get to control who goes to the light, right? I get to invite it in because then it's not a surprise. Oh, I'm feeling this way. That means I'm sad. That means this. Or when and you relate to it differently. But you can't just walk around in straight um, reaction mode because we can't trust our feelings in that way.
So is it okay then that the young lady you were dating, would it have been better for her if she had said to you, Jamal, it hurts my feelings that I can understand not being invited to the dinner table to meet your parents yet, but it hurts my feelings that I've never been invited to your church, right?
Yeah.
Church is supposed to be such a beautiful place where
Mm-hmm.
anyone can come, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
you are dating this individual, you know, it doesn't mean that because you showed up to church with me that we're coupled. It just means you brought a friend to church or you invited a friend to share space with you, you know, and your religious beliefs and your practices. So I'm giving back these examples in hopes that it helps a person because they could have said that to you. I don't know if it would have changed anything. And then they could have gone to therapy and been able to express themselves. The reason why I quit Jamal and because I felt like continuing to date him was getting nowhere, as evidenced by him not even being ready to invite me to even church. So he doesn't even, for me, I saw it as he doesn't even value me enough
Whoa,
to invite me
whoa,
to church.
wait a minute.
So
We
therefore,
putting a
so
lot.
therefore, so therefore, I'm going to stem this relationship because that makes me feel better about me.
So the beginning of that conversation was perfect, right? You're
Oh,
going to get brother, you muted, but the beginning of that conversation was perfect in the sense that you're coming to me expressing a need, right? But then when you took her to therapy and started about suspending this relationship because of I didn't there's still assumption happening, right? There's still assumption. And what you
hmm.
want to be able to do is have clear communication that you're not assuming my value or my intent, but rather that I'm
Oh,
communicating my value and my intent. right?
Well, did you?
Hold on. This isn't Jamal's therapy hour. This is a conversation about communication and passive aggressiveness, right? The in order to understand something, in order to learn something, you have to first admit you don't know something, right? That's why it's so hard for us to be able to learn people, because we go into relationships and not say, okay, I'm trying to learn Jamal. We go into relationships and be like, oh, I know men. It's no problem. I know women. I know what women think, right? I have to learn you, right? There are some similarities that you have. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you are not all woman. You are not Whitney Houston. You are not every woman, right? You are a woman, but you are uniquely and individually designedly made, as are men. And so once we go into that conversation, and you can come from a space of wholeness, right? And you can come from a space of completeness and awareness, then and only then will we be able to grow and move forward, right? Because if that is one of your let's just say church, if church is one of your must-haves in a relationship, then you can't wait for church to be now important because it's important to me. What's important to you first, right? Is it just that you think I'm hiding something? Is it that you have to know everything? Like, and none of these things are wrong. If that's who you are, that's who you are. If you have a need to know, a high need to know, you need to know that. So an exercise for everybody to do is to write out your top 20 needs. Just needs. They don't have to be relational, but it can be. Write out your top 20 and then go back and list them from importance from 1 to 5. And those 1 to 5 are your non-negotiable needs. These are things that you need, that you know you need, that you have to have, because when our needs aren't met, we have emotional reactions. Everybody, think of a baby. If a baby is hungry and the baby doesn't get to eat, the baby is going to cry. We do the same thing, but we cry differently. When you have your top list of needs, when you have your top 5, you have to be able to have a discussion with your partner. Let's go relationship. You have to have a discussion with your partner that is specifically to the point of, this is very important to me. This is my top 5. And have the same conversation with your partner. Let's write down the top 10 things we need. Then let's write down the 1 through 5. 1 through 5 are not needs that you can compromise on. You just can't compromise on them, right? And then some are less as important and some are more as important, right? And I'm not talking about I need somebody that's going to cook and I need somebody that's going to, no. We talking about me, right? This is what I need for me. And then you can learn to move through conversations and through life, because you'll start to see where it happens at work, right? Is your employment meeting your needs? Is your physical health and your gym, is your gym meeting your needs, right? But you have to have an honest conversation about what yours are, because the world will tell you what you need to be happy. The world will tell you if you just got money, you'll be good. You need more money, get more money, do this or do that, have more sex, eat more food, go more places, do more things, drink some more, party some more. The world will tell you all of these things. You have to find out what's important to you. You have to decide what's the top 5 of your list of needs. And then you can move through life a way different way, because if my top 5 are similar to your top 5, and I promise I can meet yours and you promise you can meet mine, how different will life be? But if you have your number 1 need is there's no way I can do that.
I think we just got our topic. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something? I think we just got our topic for next month. The non-negotiable needs.
Non-negotiating needs. Absolutely.
Non-negotiating needs. I said non-negotiable.
Negotiating the non-negotiable. There you go. You can have that topic for free.
Oh,
Brother Craig, you're muted.
He's generous with topics, but he's not generous with church. But
I never said that. Negotiating the
Um,
non-negotiable.
I love
like
it. I love it. So just
We're wrapping
prefacing
up.
that, and I love that question. We're going to wrap up, prefacing that, therapeutically, Jamal, at what age should we be aware of our non-negotiable?
Mm.
It's a good
And the
question.
only, thank you. Let's table that for right now.
Okay.
At what
Because
age?
should we, now I understand executive function occurs chronologically earlier in women than it does in men. And I also understand that if the executive function development is impeded by any alcohol or substance abuse, it delays and retards that process. How healthy is our climate, our culture here, that by the time you are 13, male or female, you are prepared enough to enter executive function clear on your own non-negotiables. And I'm going to say, in the absence of the tribal systems that took young people through the rites of passage and introduced them into maturity, where
Correct.
the hell are the maps now? Where are the maps now? Where are we getting it?
Correct.
To be continued, please. Yes, to be continued.
Yeah, so that's gonna be
I love that
the
smile
hot
on your face.
topic. That's what was that part? I'm sorry.
I love the smiles on both of your faces.
Oh yeah, because it just fueled like so much stuff. But yes, I'm definitely all of our tribal systems, all of our hierarchy systems, everything that used to bring us through our rite of passage is now lost. And that's why we have all these adults with so much arrested development, unable to communicate with each other, right?
Okay.
Lashing out as opposed to reaching out, right? And
Well,
what we do want everyone to do, correct.
Yes.
We would rather
Yes,
you
right.
reach out to a licensed practitioner, whether it's Jamal Kizzy and his information is here, whether it's someone in your own state, someone you already connect with. These are the tools that you need to take you through the ability to get mentally healthy, emotionally healthy enough to communicate what your non-negotiables are.
Excellent.
Like taking me to church.
As as we close, I do want to say that, and we can definitely have this conversation, but our needs also change, right?
Correct.
They
As we
grow
get
and they
older.
develop. The things that you needed at 18 are not the things you need at 40, right? And what's funny is that we'll spend, for those of us who are single into our 40s, at a certain point, I can't be looking for the same woman I was looking for when I was 18. Like, there has to be some kind of growth and there has to be some kind of change. But what happens is, to answer your question, is what happened to the tribe and what is the map of what our needs are in American society? It's purely simple. Those things became sex, right? The moment you start having sex, the moment you start to figure out who it is that you want and what it is that you want. But we know that that is the most minute of the needs in the hierarchy of needs. But we spend our lifetime chasing that. Then we start chasing material, then we start chasing money, then we start chasing acceptance. And I'll say this, and this is my last word: the invention and when we technology, the more technology develops, the more the world is open to us. But the less we are able to relate to one another. Before, we had a community that we were in. Our community was our social network, right? Our community was the availability. I only knew as far as I could see. But the more I'm able to see, the more I'm able to have at my hands, the more choices I can have with like society, if you will. The more options that I want, and then I stop being able to make decisions. It's just like going to In-N-Out Burger versus a whole different place. In-N-Out, you got 3 choices: cheese, no cheese, or double. That's it. Right? It limits your conversation. You gonna get a burger. Now, do you want it with cheese or without? Right? But if you start throwing chicken on that thing, and then fish, and then the Beyond Burger, and then now you like, what do I want? Let me see. Let me think. I want to. Right? When we start giving more and more options to younger and younger kids, the psychological development of a child is: do I want to be like everyone else, or do I want to be like myself? Well, if I open up everyone else to the world, then I don't know who
You're
I want.
Lost.
Right?
Exactly.
And so we play that game over and over and over again. And next thing you know, you're 50 years old and you're like, yeah, I think I still want to be a rapper. Right? It happens all the time.
Right.
Can't wait till
Jamal.
next month.
Jamal Kizzy.
See you guys
and
next month.
Tracy Miller of Saffron. Guys, definitely need to text you guys. I want to get some crystal, some things I can nugget and start to beat up social media. I really want to tease the world about coming to this conversation because this is too critical. So I will be in touch. Please and thank you.
Peace and love, people.
I didn't hear you.
One
Ms.
love,
Miller.
everybody. One love.
There she is.
Bye.
All right. Everybody take oh. There's a smile on your face. That's not a bad thing. That is not a bad thing.
Oh, so it got real interesting, huh?
It got real interesting in the end, Bishop. It got real interesting in the end. It took some time to warm up, but we got there.
Well,
I think
I
this morning,
appreciate